Thank you, Jen, and thank you so much to the 92nd Street Y for having us here this evening. Glamour loves doing events here, and I'm sure that tonight is going to be one of our best yet. In fact, I think tonight will have some serious ripple effects. There are going to be over 500 of you in this audience, and I bet at least half of you walked in with some sort of business idea in the back of your mind. Yes? Anybody? I hope that this evening gives you the inspiration and some of the advice to keep going as you pursue those dreams. And by the way, over the course of the evening, feel free to tweet as we go using the hashtag #StartupSecrets. So, why talk entrepreneurship tonight? Well, as editor-in-chief of Glamour, I get asked certain questions year after year. How do I make my mascara last all day long? Or what's it like to hang out with Beyonce? What do I know? On the mascara thing, by the way, Benefit Stay Don't Spray Primer works really well. But there is one question that has come up a lot in recent years, and it's a new one. I want to start my own business, we hear from readers. How can I do it? This is the dream for Glamour's millions of readers right now. And they're not alone. Women are starting businesses at twice the rate men are. Over 200,000 new ones launched last year alone. That's about 550 new businesses run by women launching every single day. In fact, and I love this, since the 2008 recession, the only businesses that have provided a net increase in employment are publicly traded corporations and privately held majority women-owned firms. Yes, I think that is worthy of applause because it essentially means that women launching their own businesses aren't just helping themselves, they are saving our economy. So at Glamour, we are into this trend. And that's why we launched something called the Glam Starters Awards in our June issue. The winners, all female entrepreneurs, have started everything from construction toys for girls to cleanup facilities for nuclear reactors. And it's also why we decided to gather some of the smartest, self-starting women we know together here tonight to tell the real truth about what it takes to make it as a female entrepreneur. So, without further ado, let's meet our panelists. Our first guest saw Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory on her 5th birthday and dreamed of owning the world's largest candy store. Today, Dylan Lauren's brainchild, Dylan's Candy Bar, features over 15,000 square feet of sweetness here in New York City, and she owns 4 other locations too, with brand extensions you wouldn't believe. Say hi to Dylan Lauren. Our next panelist is the person you go see after too much time in Dylan's store. Elizabeth Cutler co-founded a little biking studio called Soul Cycle on the Upper West Side in 2006. Behold the power of Soul Cycle. Today, that spinning empire is huge. She'll be expanding to over 40 locations in the next 5 years in a deal with Equinox. She has nail polishes, candles, everything, and I even forgive her for the fact that not 1, but 2 of my employees quit magazines to work at Soul Cycle. That's how much people love this place. Say hi to Elizabeth Cutler. Our next guest, the daughter of a Somali diplomat, was a poli-sci major at Nairobi University when she was, as they say in the modeling business, discovered. In her subsequent astonishing career as a supermodel, she noticed a dearth of good products for women of color. So, in 1994, she fixed that. I'm speaking, of course, of world-renowned entrepreneur Iman, founder and CEO of Iman Cosmetics, Skincare and Fragrance, a company with global retail sales of $25 million, and the creator of Iman Global Chic, a top-selling fashion brand on HSN. Welcome, Iman. Our next panelist loved independent boutiques and wondered why there wasn't a site to make shopping them easier. So, I guess you can tell where this is going. She invented it. That's what these women do. Her breakthrough e-commerce website, Refinery29, gets over 1 billion page views a year today. Please welcome the creative director of Refinery29, Piera Gallardi. Our final panelist was a world-renowned supermodel when she launched her Tumblr page, Oso Coco. Today, she has over 2 million followers on Google+, over 500,000 on Twitter, over 4 million on Chinese social networks, all told 10 million followers on social media platforms around the globe, and a well-earned reputation as the smartest young model around. To prove it, she just announced that she's a new contributing editor at PC Magazine. Congratulations, please welcome Coco Rocha. Okay, guys, I'm joining you in the empty chair, and let's get to business. I want to ask each one of you how your companies or your brands, in your case, Coco, started. So, Dylan, let's start with you. Tell us the thumbnail sketch of how Dylan's Candy Bar came to be.
Well, I've always loved candy. I loved eating it when I was probably 2 onward. And then I went to college and was fortunate to study abroad in London and Italy, and then traveled all over collecting candy I like to eat, but also candy I thought looked beautiful on my shelf. So I started filling suitcases with just gorgeous sculptures from Italy and like packaging from China and just candy from around the world and different artisans. And then I just started decorating and doing collages and mosaics with candy, and the idea kept evolving into, why don't I actually sell this candy from around the world and have different artists make candy art and then candy fashion and candy design. And then I took that with my love of Willy Wonka and decided to create the world's largest candy store, which started in New York in 2001, and now we're 12 years old.
So when you were making these mosaics out of candy, did people get it, or did they think you were crazy?
You know, I think the mosaics actually were interesting. I actually pitched to M&M Mars a giant mosaic about the size of this screen with M&M's Colorworks, and they were like, "We've never seen candy used like this before." So I think it started opening eyes of people who've been in the candy industry for years, and then different businessmen actually were a little bit like, "Why would you open a candy store? There's 1,000 of them." But they didn't understand that I wanted to create a Disneyland of candy, and that it wasn't just like a mom and pop store. It was 15,000 square feet of candy from everywhere.
And you had that vision for the Disneyland of candy from the very beginning.
Yeah, and I still have higher visions. I mean, one day it could be a theme park of candy, who knows, but
I
you know.
love that. Please do that.
The sky's the limit with candy and all things candy related. So.
Elizabeth, tell us your story.
Well, I don't really like to work out, and I do now. I love to work out now, just for the record. But I had 2 children, and I gained a lot of weight, and I couldn't lose it. And one of my best friends came to me, and she said, "Listen, you need to get some cardio, otherwise you're never going to lose that 45 pounds. You're going to have that for the rest of your life." And so she took me to a class, and I had such a breakthrough on that bike. I just realized that if I could do it, really anybody can do it and connect with fitness in a different way, because I think sometimes gyms can be like a little off-putting to people, and you know, everybody needs cardio, and it's not fun for everybody. Some people love it, but some people don't know how to connect to it. So I met my business partner, Julie, and we just really shared this incredible common vision from the beginning. And you know, for us, what we love about SoulCycle is that the bike is always there for you. So whether you need it to just like kick your ass, pardon me, on a daily basis just to get a great workout, you can do that. Or, you know, listen, we've all cried on the bike. We've all like had a breakthrough moment on the bike. So it really just really meets you wherever you are in your life.
Yeah. How did you go from, you know, everybody needs a fun thing to do to work out to I have a vision for this place that is going to become an addiction for so many women?
You know, I think it's like anything. If you can't find it, you have to make it for yourself. And that's exactly what we did. We just couldn't find anything that we wanted to do. And it was incredibly frustrating to us. So we just decided, okay, we're going to make this happen. Yeah. And we found our first location on Craigslist. And we just sort of took it from there.
Literally on Craigslist.
Well, yeah, it was the height of the market. Nobody would talk to us. Not a broker would call us back. We couldn't get any space. And, you know, one thing led to another. I thought, forget it. I'm going to go on Craigslist. So that's where we found it. You can find anything on Craigslist.
Good and bad. Iman. You have a long story. But
long.
Tell us about the skincare line, though. How did you decide to do that?
Well, first of all, it started with cosmetics, but I was majoring in political science in Nairobi University at the age of 18, and a photographer named Peter Beard stopped me in the street on my way to the campus and asked me if I've ever been photographed. And I told him I'm not that kind of a girl. Obviously, I have become that kind of a girl. But I couldn't, my family were in political exile, so we were refugees. The Kenyan government gave us the children scholarships, but they were only giving us for 2 years. Mm-hmm. After that, we had to fetch for ourselves. So I knew that the 2 years were coming up, and I didn't have money, and I didn't know how I was going to finish my education. So when this man approached me and he was persistent, he said the key word was that I will pay you. Mm-hmm. And I've never heard that term in terms of photography. I've never seen fashion magazines before I came to the United States in 1975. Mm-hmm. So needless to say, he took pictures of me, and I thought that was the end. But what was important was I made my first business transaction that day. Because he said, when he said, I'll pay you, and I said, well, how much? And he said, well, how much do you want? And I asked for $8,000. That was the tuition for 1 year at Nairobi University. And he said, okay. And so he took the pictures, and I thought that was the end of that, and I got my tuition out of it, and the end of that. But literally, a couple of weeks later, an agent by the name of Wilhelmina called me, actually didn't call me because I didn't have a phone, and the campus didn't have a phone. So they said to a friend of mine who was working at Pan Am, that's how long ago it was. Pan Am existed. So they said, go to our office and we'll call you on so-and-so day at so-and-so time. So I went there, and here they were blabbling about, we'll give you a contract and you'll make so much money. I had no idea what modeling was, and never seen fashion magazines. I had no concept of it. So I thought, well, you know, I have nothing to lose. Maybe I'll just go for a trip, see it for a couple of months, and, you know, come back, right? I've been here since 1975. But one thing I asked for was a return ticket, because I wanted to make sure that I was not stuck in a foreign country, that I had no idea how to go back home if things didn't work out. My third day in New York, I was working for American Vogue. That's how I started. I was with Arthur Elgort, and there was a Caucasian model and I on the set. And the makeup artist asked a perplexing question. And he asked me. He didn't ask the other girl. He said to me, did you bring your own foundation? I had no idea, because I've never worn makeup in my life before, so I had no concept of what he was talking about. But I knew it was a perplexing question because I could see it. He didn't ask her. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know what was different about me. Why was he asking me the question? Needless to say, I said no. And he went and mixed some stuff and put it on my face. And when I looked at myself in the mirror, I looked gray. I didn't look like a brown girl. So what you have to understand, and what I learned fast at that time, was that I was petrified. I had no idea what was going to happen. And my saving grace was the photographs were in black and white. Black and white hides multitude of sins. And you have to understand, for a model, and Coco will attest to that, photography is our currency. How we look in pictures says and makes you or breaks you. So I was petrified that this incident, that the fashion gods helped me because it was in black and white, that if it occurred again, I wasn't prepared. I had nothing. So what I did was that I asked people what was foundation, and then literally went to every store I could think of. And again, there was Woolworth at that time. We're talking about 1975, right? So I went and bought every product that had some kind of a pigment, foundations, and I mixed. Again, I'm going to tell you, this is also a long time ago. There was Polaroids. There was no digital camera. So I'll mix products and put it on my face, and I'll take a Polaroid. to see how it will translate in pictures, because it's all about the photos that we take as models and not necessarily just how we look in real life. So I became an expert at making some kind of a foundation for women of color, and the seed was planted in my head then.
And how did you then decide this is something that I'm going to make a career out of?
Well, I was a model for 16 years. At the height of my career, I decided I was going to retire because I always felt that I should be ahead of the game and not wait for somebody to tell me bye-bye. So I wanted to leave and be prepared for my second act, right? But for all those years, I've always had a package of foundation in my bag. Every black model who were out there would always come to me when we were doing runways and ask me, oh, can I use your badge? Because people didn't have anything for us. So makeup artists didn't have anything for us. So basically, when I stopped modeling in 1989, all of a sudden I was exposed. You have to understand, fashion is like Barnum and Bailey. We travel together, we hitch tents together, and we do fashion shows together, and we eat and travel together. And all of a sudden, I was exposed to really masses of women who would stop me in the street and ask me, what foundations are you wearing? And where did you buy it?
Yeah.
And it occurred then to me,
I should do
there
this.
is nothing out there still.
Right.
And then hence I created Iman Cosmetics.
Pierre, you similarly started something that just didn't exist before. Can you talk about the hole that you saw and what you wanted to make?
Yeah, when we started Refinery 29, we really wanted to kind of disaggregate these. There's all these different independent boutiques that were out there that we were seeing. We were seeing this amazing entrepreneurial spirit. These, what we saw as curators. People that were, creating their own lines and their own stores and their own sort of experiences, but there wasn't anywhere to kind of discover them in one spot, and there wasn't really a way for them to market themselves.
And this is what year?
This was in 2005. And also there weren't that many websites out there at the time. There were very little competitors in the fashion space, and all of them were focusing more on the big brands. So, we basically launched the site with it was designed kind of like a mall map, where you could go and virtually sort of shop and get a window into these boutiques that were all throughout the city in New York and in LA. And so that was kind of the start. And it's funny, I had lunch with my old boss at the magazine I worked at where I was working when we were starting the site, and he had lunch with me, and he was like, I can't believe you guys succeeded. He's like, I remember you were going out door to door, photographing these stores, and writing about these stores that had no advertising budget, these brands that had such a small following, and I just thought, like, what are you doing? You guys are going nowhere fast. And I think,
he thought you should have hung out with the girl with the mosaics of candy, right?
Yes, the mosaics of candy. But I think that independent spirit at that time was really sort of like in the zeitgeist, and people identified with it, and we grew organically with the people that were sort of aligned with that type of thought process. And I think now as the site has grown and we've really gone from being just writing about fashion and style and going more into lifestyle, I think that sort of point of view, that entrepreneurial spirit and that independent mindset has really carried through as we expand.
Yeah, obviously you had some doubters at the beginning. Who did you find that supported you, that kind of cheered you on and got it? Because that's so important.
I think that, it's interesting. We sometimes laugh about the process that we went through when we were first sort of starting to write about these stores and make them aware of what we were doing, because again, there was so little online. It was kind of the Wild West, and in a lot of ways that meant that we could take risks and forge our own path and not feel like we had to follow any model. That's a good and bad thing. We also didn't have anything to follow. But a lot of it was interesting, like going to door, like a lot of the stores were like, what are you trying to sell us? Like, what are you doing? And we're like, no, we just want to write about you, and we think you're cool. But a lot of those stores, as we started writing about these independent boutiques and these stores, like, you know, they were our champions. I mean, Stephen Allen was our first angel investor, and he, you know, that was really great. It was a really great alignment for us early on, because he was really, you know, in that world, and a lot of, you know, allowed us to connect with a lot of the right people and give us advice in a lot of ways. So he was, you know, I think the brands and stores that we were writing about were champions, and then also people like Julie Gilhart, who was at Barney's at the time, like people that were using our site as a resource to discover new talent.
Coco, we're all talking about the businesses that these panelists have started. Your business is really your personal brand, and you know, I don't know if that's a word that you yourself use or if you think about it that way, but when did you decide that you were going to create this sort of big global platform for yourself?
Yes, this is awkward because I'm like listening to these ladies who have like powerful businesses, and I'm like, me. Well, so when I started, it was sort of the backlash of the supermodels. When I started, you wouldn't know any of our names. You didn't know one girl from the other. We all kind of looked alike, and I thought that was modeling. I really didn't care to model. When someone asked me if I would like to model, I was an Irish dancer. They came to me at a competition, and I thought this man was really weird because whoever asks a dork like me to model. But I said, hey, why not? Let's do it. But when doing it, I really noticed that no one knew much about me. No one cared to know about me. Let's just take these photos. Wow, you're a really good-looking girl. Guess what? You're going to do Vogue. You're going to do Italian Vogue. You're going to do the cover. You're going to meet all these fantastic people. And it was amazing. But then again, people didn't know me. If you did an interview with me, you know, it was really up to that interviewer. If he liked me, hey, this was going to be an awesome story. If you hated me, wow, this is going to suck. And that was it. I had no way to have a voice. And I look up to the other era and the supermodels, Iman, I think of Cindy Crawford, Christy, Naomi, and I felt like looking at them, they definitely had voices, and maybe I'm totally out of context here, but for me it felt like the people, you know who they are, but do you know the ladies of today or a few seasons back? Probably not. And I thought, wow, I need to change this for me in order to have a longer, successful career. And so for me, it was, I started a blog. And it was really nothing. It was kind of for friends and family. And hey, if you follow me, thank you. And so I wrote about nothing. It was about my trips. It was about, I remember one post, it's a bird. That was it. His name was Tweety, and yet people were like, Tweety's so cool, he's so fantastic. And I thought, this is really awesome because I have an audience. So I thought, let's keep going with this. I got this new thing called Twitter at the time. It wasn't really working out. People weren't really into it, but I thought I should get into this. I started getting a lot of these accounts getting my name, and funny enough, the moment I realized that it was going to work out for me, there was a cover on the Daily News that said, big photo of me, saying, model too fat for the runway. And I was like, well, this is awesome. Good. The best thing was my husband, we were dating at the time, he's like, you should get a newspaper this morning. And that was there. And I thought, oh my goodness, what do I do with this? And this was the first time that I decided to speak on my behalf. There was one time before, Anna Wintour asked me to speak on behalf of models about health issues, and I really felt powerful then, but this was the chance by myself to write on my own and say, hey, this was actually the story. This is what I meant to say to them. They took the story way out of context. Like I said, they can change it if they want to. And I said, listen to me. It was on The View. It was on all the news reporters took the stories. They were all on my side saying, like, go Coco. And finally from there I realized I have a voice that I can use for myself, for my industry, and for my peers. I speak on behalf of a lot of models these days. I believe in it. I think it's so important for them to have voices. And so from there I've decided to brand myself in that direction.
You've said before that you make a concerted decision to try to be first on certain social media platforms. Can you talk about that?
I think it's important to be to play around with different things. For instance, when I did Twitter, no one was on it, but I decided to play around with this new thing, Twitter, and Instagram too. No one was on Instagram, but I thought, let's try it out. It's got to do something one day, and if it doesn't, who cares? But at least I have the domain name of Coco Rocha, and I made sure I got my little check beside it so that you knew you were following me. But funny enough, people started to love Instagram, but there were about 10 fashion people on Instagram. Who are you going to follow for a model? The only one that is there. So I realized it was really a great way of boosting up your numbers, was if you're the first for these new accounts, and people start to really get onto Instagram, Twitter, whatever. I mean, Vine today, not a lot of people are on it, but hey, be the first person on Vine. And who knows, in your social clubs, your groups, whatever you do, people will look up to you because you are the first. They will be like, wow, so-and-so, love her because she's on Vine, she's the only one on Vine, and I'm going to follow her. And funny enough, it's this sort of like effect. People start to just be like, well, if she's following and he's following, I got to be following. You don't really need to follow me, but follow me.
Let's switch gears and talk about money for a second. Pierre, you were talking about how Stephen Allen came on as an investor, and that was a really crucial moment for you guys. Iman, where did you get the first funding for your makeup line?
Okay, so in 1993, I decided I was going to create Iman Cosmetics. And the mission and statement and philosophy, it hasn't changed from day one. And it was out of the many is the universal eye. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to really create a different dialogue about beauty. All I kept on hearing when I was a model, and after that, was black and white, you know? And so what I started doing was really be interested in what was going first in the zeitgeist. At that moment, it was actually a lot of MTV. We were seeing a lot of the hip hop videos. And when you looked at those kids, you would see a Japanese with dreadlocks. You know, there was like all these kind of a multicultural, multi-world out there. And I live in New York, which is totally multicultural, multi vibe to it. So by just walking down the street and trying to look and engage and see, what I was seeing is that what I knew for a fact that the fashion and especially the beauty industry was way behind it, was this old mentality about what ethnic makeup is. The word ethnic itself is so 1950s, you know, it's like, it's so bad, you know, to me, I mean,
well, everybody's ethnic. If you're Irish, that's an ethnicity.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, it's like, it's black and white. Everything was that. But the whole multi-culti thing was happening, but nobody was doing anything about it in our industry. So my first thing was that at Iman Cosmetics, what I wanted to do, my first ad, I wanted to have really the first multicultural representation. So it was a black girl, it was a Spanish girl, and when I called the agencies, the modeling agency trying to find a Latina who's from even America, Puerto Rican, there was none. They said, how about a Brazilian who looks like and I'm like, we're talking about Puerto Rico is one of the states of America. How come you guys don't have a model from here? You know. And then to make it, I thought I'll make it even the statement bigger and bigger. I wanted to have an American Indian in there. Well, needless to say, nobody had any American Indian. I called Ralph Lauren because he used to have all those ads. Remember all those Western things. You know, he would know, and he says, "No, I use Spanish girls." So, and somebody then told me there was a Native American community that in New York. So I went there and I asked them if they could really, literally. Do a casting call for me, for a girl, anyway, so they gathered all the tribe and they showed me, and I selected this girl and Michael Thompson. And this is one thing I learned also about photography and being in fashion. The photographer you use says as much as your statement of what, if you use a photographer that's, and whatever statement you make is whatever. But you use a big photographer, and it is, there's a story. You're creating a story and a language that is new, that has not been used before. Michael Thompson, who's now, who Michael Thompson, major photographer, he did the ad for me. And I got this Native American girl who's so beautiful, and guess what? She became the face of Pocahontas when they were doing Disney. Huh. I mean, she was beyond beautiful, but identifiable Native American. She didn't look Spanish or anything like that. So the language I was coming to, that I wanted to create is a brand new world, is a brand new day. And I was not interested in the ethnicity of where your ethnic background is. I was interested more on a skin tone, because a Filipino girl is as dark as I am, and she's not called ethnic. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so I wanted, Spanish and Latina women come from blonde, blue eyes, and as dark as I am. So I wanted to take that away and out and just make it as a brand new world.
Right.
And so that's what I created.
And at this point, were you still doing it with your own investment, your own funding? Or
talking about money. So I created first. I went to the.
Yeah, so many people here want to know how to start.
I went to a lab, because I am Iman. And I had the story, I had what I wanted, and mind you, because I am that woman, I am that consumer, I'm the girl who's going to the stores and can't find the product. So I created it. So I created the batches, went to Hallmark, which is one of the biggest labs, and they said, well, we need a big order for us to make a big batch. So my first, I didn't want to go to department stores at that time, because department stores, they eat you up. It's about real estate. I couldn't compete with the Estee Lauders and all those people, so I couldn't. So I thought, okay, so I'm gonna go in a different way. So I went to JCPenney and showed them what I wanted to do and that presentation. And they said, we'll take it and we'll put it in 400 doors. Mm-hmm. And out of that, I went to Hallmark and I said, I got 400 doors. So I didn't put any of my money. I own 100% of the company, and that's how I started my business. Mm-hmm. But the thing to take it from it is that you really need to know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And it's not about just the foundation, how it works. I mean, I've stopped reading Vogue and I started reading the Census Bureau. Now, you know how boring that is. Mm-hmm. It's all about, but there it was in big letters, the Browning of America. By 2000 something, it will be 51% of the population will be of ethnic background. The median income, that's what I was reading. So I knew the future was within reach. And as you said, Coco, I had to be first. Mm-hmm. So I jumped in and I did it, and that's how that. But at the end of the day, it's the product stupid. Because that woman might buy it and say, oh, Iman created it, but if she takes it home and puts it and it does not work, you've lost her. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, I have to say my product's what kept me in business.
It's the product, stupid.
Yes.
Got it. You were talking about advice, and Dylan, I'm curious, and I know you've probably been asked so many times, when you were thinking about starting Dylan's Candy Bar, did you ask your father for advice, and if so, what did he say?
Well, I definitely asked my father, my mother, and my brothers, because we're very entrepreneurial, and so those are like the dinner conversations that we grew up with, being that my dad is Ralph Lauren, and I grew up with him asking us, what store should I open next? And, what do I know, I was like 10 years old, but, so I mean, there's always like an open conversation about these things. So, they knew I loved candy. I lost a tooth and a piece of taffy, and it was like a celebration, at one age. And I was always decorating with candy and colors and giving gifts with, made out of candy. So, when I talked about, opening a store with some of these things, it was like, a done deal. They all understood it because it was like a growing passion from the time I watched Willy Wonka to this evolution. It was sort of like a no-brainer. But my dad, being such a visionary, really was one of the only people who understood it wasn't just a candy store selling candy, we were selling a lifestyle, and that would be giving people the opportunity to relive their childhood memories, understanding how to live the sweet life, you know, feeling like a kid again at any age. I mean, we have customers celebrating their birthdays in our party room who are 85 years old, and we have candy strippers in there. So, I mean, so he understood that and really understood that while it is candy, to me, candy and what Dylan's Candy Bar is about merging fashion, art, and pop culture with candy. So it's bigger, the idea, than just the little candy store. Other people outside of my family who were less entrepreneurial or less understanding art and fashion and design were like, how are you gonna make money selling bazooka? It's 5 cents. But they didn't understand the big picture. And I think learning from my dad about the lifestyle brand taking a tie to an industry with home furnishings and clothing and, you know, cars and just, you know, being able to design this world that people want to live in, it has been very influential to me.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting hearing you talk about his and your ability to see that big picture, that it wasn't just candy that you were selling, it was this ability to relive your childhood memories. And Iman, what you were selling is sort of a belief in a more inclusive America in the same way. And do you feel, I mean, SoulCycle clearly connects to people on, you know, more than just the practical level of I need a place to go exercise. There's something very emotional there. Do you think about what that bigger idea is that it offers people?
Well, I mean, I think it's a lot of what Dylan said. I think that when you merge good design with, we try to have you walk in the front door and feel an immediate connection. We spend a lot of time on customer service. I mean, it really goes back to our first location on Craigslist. We didn't have a sign. And so a lot of people have heard this story, but because, you know, there was no way for people to find us, every single person who walked in the front door, we were so grateful to see them that we wanted to make sure that they just would come back and be happy. It was just like a miracle that they actually found us in the back of this rear lobby on 72nd Street. And so I think for us, like the gratitude of just seeing a customer, you know, come back and people really getting something out of it was always really meaningful. So in that way, I would say that's true. But, you know, when you look at something that is just single focused on a particular industry and you want it to sort of cross-pollinate, you do have to think about it from a design perspective and you have to think about it from a lifestyle perspective. And when those things come together, I think it just has a lot of authenticity, assuming it comes sort of from the right place. And that's something that always grew organically, you know, for us as well.
Yeah, I didn't ask you the money question, but I know I've read that you funded a lot of the early growth of SoulCycle on your credit cards, right?
Oh, did we ever? I mean, it was actually really interesting. The seed money for the company came from a friend of mine. He woke up one morning, he's like, I want to start a sparkling fruit juice business. And my husband and I were in Telluride, and we saw it there. I thought to him, you know what, something's going to happen with this. We should put a little money into it. Our kids were small. We weren't paying for school or anything. And so I called my friend and I said, you know, we want to invest. And he said, there's no way I'm taking your money. I'm going to lose this. And the next week, I was like, I can't do that to you. I was like, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I am an adult, but that's fine. I really get it. And then the next week he called and said that it was Izzy, this sparkling beverage fruit juice, and they had called and said, we need money. We got an order from Whole Foods. We have no cash. And we've gone to all of our friends and family too many times, like we are tapped out. Right. And so my husband has been such an enormous supporter of ours. He was like, okay, yeah, you know, we should do that. So we did that personally, and it was very interesting because when we started SoulCycle, Alan was very supportive and helped us sort of get off the ground. And then 3 months after we opened, I was standing in the kitchen, and I opened this FedEx package, and I had heard that Izzy had been sold to Pepsi, but I didn't really connect it, and I opened, and there was a check in there for the exact amount of money that we needed to start SoulCycle, and I started screaming and dancing like crazy. It was unbelievable. So, I mean, we were very, very fortunate, but, you know, sort of to that point, I have a very strong personal mission about women getting funded for business, and I want to say to you that SoulCycle, besides the, you know, incredible generosity of my husband, I mean, we would not be in business today if it weren't for American Express. JP Morgan, with all due respect to JP Morgan, but they would give us $100,000. We were a pretty good-sized business. The most money I could get from them was $100,000, and we needed, a lot of money to grow. And so what we decided to do was just stop paying ourselves, hope we made payroll, get out our credit cards, and just hope to God that it was going to work out. And I remember, being at the front desk, and I was upstairs in my office actually, and the front desk called and they said, we can't buy toilet paper. And I was like, okay, I got it. How many rolls do we have left? And they said, we have 7 rolls left. And I was like, okay, that's great. And I knew that it was going to be fine, but it was just like, we really did sort of max it out. I have to say, we called American Express, can you up our credit limit? It was 2009, nobody was doing anything. Yes, exactly. So, but that being said, I think that there are great resources out there. I know that a lot of our politicians are working on that, particularly women politicians. Kirsten Gillibrand is a huge supporter of that. And there are some great seed investment companies that are out there that are really trying to get behind these, not only startups, but the biggest issue that people find is when they get to $1 million of revenue, there's like a dead zone, and they can't find funding. Like, the banks won't give you anything, and yet sometimes these VC things are they're too predatory. And I think that what we're seeing right now, which is really interesting, is that there are, strong groups that are out there for women that want to help people get going and can really give some expertise in addition to funding.
Right. And of course, as women, we need to be willing to negotiate well. And Coco, I want to ask you about that, because I know that, you take pride in the fact that you've been strong in negotiating your contracts as a model. So what can you say about what you've learned?
Well, I learned hard, because at the beginning of it all, I trusted everyone. Starting in this industry at 15, you just assume that everyone's going to take care of you, and they don't. I had great agents that took care of me, but more so to people that would sign contracts. For instance, I had a manager that I assumed was taking care of me and doing what he needed to be doing, and he wasn't, and that was frustrating. So I realized I needed to really hone in on that. And as well, because I don't know if many of you know, but I have strict rules when I'm on set. I don't do nudity, I don't do semi-nudity, there we go. I don't do religious artifacts, governmental, anything with government, holidays, none of that. Boys, they better be dressed. They better be not making out with me. There's a lot of rules on my contract, and everyone in this industry knows it now. But at the beginning, I would have to just send the editor-in-chief and be like, all right, you want me to take photos? Here's the contract. And they would have to look at it all. It wasn't like that at the beginning. At the beginning, someone said, I want you to be nude. And I was so pressured. I was told, like, no, I don't do nude. And at the time, I was in Asia, and they said, if you don't do this right now, we will ship you home. You will pay for all the money that you have, that you're in debt with. And pretty much, they're going to punish you. And at that time, being 15, I was so nervous. We compromised that I would be semi-nude. Till this day, I'm still mad at those people for doing that to me, because that is the one photo you will find of me online where I'm semi-nude. So I went home and said, hey, I'm never going to do nude or semi-nude, and you got to write in a contract. Everything else that I've just said to you, I had to learn and have to then go, oh, yeah, got to write that one too. No religious artifacts.
Yeah.
Got to write that one as well. No this, no that. I mean, every single time I had to learn, because, hey, if it wasn't written, they didn't care. So I've really learned that what's it all worth? Is it worth making the career and being successful and being powerful? Or, hey, is it holding to yourself and doing what you truly believe in? And, hey, if you sell out, that's up to you, totally fine, that's great, sure. But I really think people are respected in any industry for standing for what they stand for. And it's okay to write in your contracts. You know, when someone goes out there to you, a future boss, and says, this is what we want, it's not a one-way situation. Yes, that's what they want, it's everything that they want. Now you write, and now this is what I want in return. Now, of course, if you're a model and you say, I don't wear red because it clashes with me, you don't deserve to model. But if, hey, you say, I need to be off at work at a certain time because I have family, kids, and they don't respect that, well, it's up to you to choose that. But I really believe that from the beginning, you need to figure out what should be in that contract, because don't learn like I have. I mean, it's 10 years, and I am finally able to go on set. Yeah, sometimes. The other week, it was all lingerie, and I just kind of laughed in their face and was like, I'm sorry, did you get the memo? And they were like, yes, but darling, it looks fabulous. And I was like, then get another model. Like, the thing is, people, even with contracts, they don't want to pay attention. And sometimes I have to be like, I actually take the physical, this is me, okay? Physical contract, show it to the stylist and said, see this? Signed by editor and chief. I don't know why you didn't get this. And I will get the attack. They will attack me being like, how dare you be like this? You're such a diva. Why are you like that? I'm like, well, you know what? Then don't work with me. It's okay. I'm fine with the fact that you will never want to work with me. But this is a contract, and you must abide to my contract. So a lot of models, again, models know that I stand for this. So I go to conferences of girls, and I say to them, hey, if I have a list of this much, and you're just against fur, you're fine. You just need to stand for what you stand for and say no fur, or whatever it is. But it is pretty difficult for anyone out there that is signing contracts. It's so important to know what you're signing. Even backstage, we all had to sign something. I asked 2 of my agents to look it over.
I saw that.
It's so important. You saw that, didn't you? It's because I have a fear of contracts. Anything with paper and signatures, very scary. But it's important to know what you're signing, and you're allowed to know. You're allowed to have a lawyer present to look at these things, and anyone, for any field. And I think it's very important for all of you to know that.
Yes. Congratulations. And by the way, may I say, shame on whoever was pressuring you like that when you were 15.
Oh, but the thing is, every model has had that. Every model has an experience that they felt they were a little too far pushed. And some girls have a voice, and they can say, hey, no. And some, like me, I was very nervous, very overwhelmed in my circumstances. And it still makes me shake at the fact of that's what I had to deal with, and still have to deal with. But now I just kind of laugh at it and be like, okay.
Yeah. Well, the moral of the story is keep your contract in your bag. Piera, both you and Coco are married to your business partners. So talk a little bit about, you know, what are the rewards and the challenges of that? Is this a good idea? Is it a scary idea?
You know, I think that for Philip and I, we're both really passionate about work, and we're both really hard workers, and you know, it's funny, sometimes I tell my friends like, oh, I'm so busy, and they're like, well, you're always busy, you always work hard. But I think, you know, for us, like, the fact that we work together means that we have like this shared passion, and it's something that, you know, creatively is really fun for us to collaborate on. And you know, if we were both working this hard and doing, you know, and making these 2 different labor of loves that didn't, you know, that were our own projects, I feel like, you know, it might be more difficult. You know, I always joke and say like, oh, we only fight about work, which is like pretty true actually. But I don't know. I think it works out, and you know, we can commiserate over the things that are tough, and we can, you know, triumph over the things that are good. You know, it's definitely difficult. You know, I mentioned that Stephen Allen was an investor, but for the first several years of our business, we were self-funded and, you know, grew very organically and, you know, had no money. And I think then, you know, it was difficult, but it was also kind of like we were in it together, and we had like...
It brought you together.
Yeah, it was good.
I have some questions from the audience, so thanks to the many of you who submitted. Piera, actually, let me start with you. How did you decide it was the right time to quit your day job to pursue your own business? I think that's such a pivotal moment for so many women.
I mean, to be honest, I had been, but prior to starting Refinery, I was the photo director at a magazine, and I had been there for 5 years, and I was sort of ready for the next challenge. So I think I was sort of primed for that. And I mean, when we started it, I started it, you know, on my free time. I was doing it after hours on the weekend, and at a certain point, I just felt like I needed to kind of jump into it. But for about the first year, it was a mix of me doing freelance. My 1099s that year were hilarious. It was like a mix. I remember I did like an illustration job, I did production, styling, photography, like anything that anyone would hire me for, I would pretty much do. And then I spent all of my other time like working on like launching our brand. So it was, I think it was intuition. I just was ready for a new challenge.
Yeah. This is a question to really any of you, and it's a tough one, but I think probably one that a lot of women grapple with. What one piece of advice would you give to women whose negative self-talk holds them back? Any of you want to take this?
Oh my God,
women.
Yes, it is, isn't it? It's that, and I think it's inherently something that's very feminine. The female is in a female genes. I mean, we do this, I mean, you do understand it. I mean, we do this even we look at ourselves in the mirror and pick and pick and pick on ourselves, right? But when it comes to business, so because we're talking about the business, is that I have to say to you, as a model, when I decided to become an executive, I mean, it took like maybe 5 to 6 years for anybody to take me seriously. But I did the first step forward to take myself seriously. I divorced myself from my industry. What does that mean? I stopped going to any of fashion parties so that nobody would just be photographing me and always have model Iman next to it, right? Only go to executive business things. Network with not fashion models or photographers, but network with business women. Ask for help to other executives. You will not believe when you reach out and ask to be mentored by another female executive, how you will be uplifted, okay? How many times I have said to people from Rosemary Bravo, who was at Saks and Burberry, I said to her, I have no idea what I'm doing. And she said, okay, we're going out to dinner, you know? And so the thing is, you have to believe in yourself because they smell on you when you don't. Do you know what I mean? They smell on you. Nobody, I mean, I divorced myself so much from it that I still do that when I get invitations. I studiously pick what I will go to and what I will not go to. Because if it does not further or it endangers my brand, my business, I don't go to. So you have to really make the tough decisions, but you also, first and foremost, you have to believe in yourself. But the only way you can believe in yourself is believe in what your business, that thing that you want to do is. You have to know it more than anybody else, inside and out, and any question thrown at you out there, you have to have the answer for it. Don't take it personal, because it's not personal. They don't know you, so it's not personal, right? But what you do and how you behave and how you believe in yourself will have a lot to do with how you will go further in your career or start up a career. And I have to tell you, in the midst of all my success, I have come twice in losing my business. Why? Because I took my eye off the ball and tried to be you know, with whatever a brand is doing. So they say fuchsia is in and let's all do fuchsia. I'm forgetting about what my core business is, right? So don't compete with the Joneses. You know, stay focused of what you're doing, right? You have to be there on the long run. I know everybody thinks everybody got it so fast and easy. It's not. It's really a hard work. That's what I personally think. But don't ask for help. Don't be scared to ask for help.
Right.
Just ask help for the right people, because other people will smell it on you. You know, and it's a jungle out there. But as a model, we have to, as she said, you know, you have to know your self-worth. It applies again to whatever you need. You have to know your self-worth.
Right. This is a related question from the audience for Elizabeth. At what point did you feel Soul Cycle was a success? Was there a moment when you thought, you know, yes, this is what I've been going for?
You know, it's funny because it just happened in February.
Really?
Yeah, and we've been going for 7 years now. And it happened for me when I went to the first anniversary of our studio in West Hollywood. So we've been New York based, and then we're open in California, and we knew that people would get a good fitness workout, but we were hoping that people would get, like you were talking about, just like more of a spiritual experience, more of an aha moment. And so we were standing in the lobby for the first anniversary and just kind of talking to people, and eventually sort of a couple people figured out who we were, and then people would come and say, you don't understand, like, what kind of a year I've had. Like, I have lost 15 pounds, that's great, but let me tell you what else really happened. All the, you know, the things that we all go through, whether it's a tragedy or just some kind of job change or just whatever it is that we're getting through. And what people would find was that they could break through on the bike, and then they could translate that into their lives. And for me, like, that just felt like real.
Right.
If that could get, you know, 3,000 miles away. So that, I think, was really our biggest moment.
Anybody else have any, you know, when I knew I might have made it moments that felt like success to you?
And by the way, we don't even think we're successful. I mean, I think you're always striving, right? You're always looking at something else.
Well, maybe the moment that feels like success to you isn't the thing that other people would expect.
That's right.
Yeah, for me, it was the first time a woman stopped me in the street and showed me, I use your cosmetics, and opens her bag and shows it to me. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And then now I get, years later, I get, oh, and my daughter also uses it. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's a personal success.
Yeah. What about the rest of you?
Well, when I first opened the doors to Dylan's Candy Bar, we were supposed to open September 12th, right after September 11th, and we ended up opening October 13th that same year. And there were like lines out the door, and it was like a party in the store for the first few weeks of people just thanking me, and you know, the people at the store like, this place is so happy, you know, I lost this person, or Candy, American favorites, oh my God, I love this country. Like, it was very like more than just we're in the nostalgia section, like, oh my God, you know, big hunk bar. But you know, so it was just the floods of happy faces that I was like, this is gonna do well, because it's more than just candy.
Yeah. What about you guys? Any moment?
I mean, for me, it still kind of happens. It's hard still because you look at like the other generations and always think, wow, one day you might have that sort of career, which, you know, for me, I think that the supermodels, it will be their generation. You know, now it's like your top models, your I don't even, TV star models, but there will never be that. But for me, I know I'm kind of trailing off here, but personally, I've looked up to Iman as such a smart businesswoman in our field. Whoa, the drums. I just think for models, we need people like Iman, and I looked up to a woman like that, and I know I'm being really sappy right now.
No, not
but
at all.
We needed it, and for me, when I hear girls that they look up to me, the way I look up to Iman, and I would also say Cindy Crawford, being such smart women, instead of just thinking of it as modeling, but going off and doing other things, which that's what I've decided to do with my career. Modeling still, I do that, but to hear the young models say to me, you know, I looked up to you since I was 8, and I'm like, I'm still young. That, I think, has been pretty amazing, and they say what they're doing in their community or what they've decided to do back home. Girls from, I remember seeing these beautiful girls, they were covered up, and they said, Coco, Rosha? And I was like, yes. They're like, I'm from Egypt, and I follow, you know, just to see women around the world being like, I was so excited, and what they've decided to do for maybe girls or for their community because of something you've personally done, that's quite the most fantastic thing you can take. And for me to say that, you know, you've done something for the industry that people will, yeah, you can take photos and you can do videos and that's fun, but that you take a personal experience away with people like Iman has done to so many women, and I think that we need more women like that. We need people that can turn and look at our other young ones and they go to you and be like, wow, thank you so much for what you've done for me.
Yeah.
But
so thanks, Iman.
Yeah, but she's actually, she contacted me. I mean, I've known Coco because I consider her one of the best models around. But she contacted me through email, and she was doing an
Twitter.
article.
Wasn't it Twitter?
Was it Twitter?
I
An
think-
article for
I was
that
like,
she was doing
hey,
in UK. Yeah.
by the way, lady.
And I contacted her, yes, and I did the interview
You did.
because she says she looks up to me, but when I grow up, I want to be Coco.
But it,
You know, so it's mutual.
but what's so amazing is that I contacted her, I think it was through Twitter, but I'm going to say it's Twitter, so you guys can do it too. But I think it was Twitter, and said, hey, I've got some questions for LUK. Can you, I know we're at Glamour, sorry.
okay.
Can you answer them? And she's like, yeah, by all means, send them. It was like 50. And she pretty much answered every single one of them. And amazing, because I can ask girls in my industry, of my generation, be like, hey, can you answer one question? I hear nothing from them. So I think if you want something, you give a little and you take a little. I mean, it is so important to do that, and that's why it was fantastic. Mon wrote back, it was like 50 questions, one question to a fellow girl, nothing.
500 emails.
There you go. So Twitter Iman.
I have a question from the audience that has a little bit of bite to it, but for
Let's
all
go.
of you, is there anyone to whom you'd like to publicly announce, I told you so? Coco, take it away.
I was the nerd in school. No one liked me. No boy liked me. I just bullied everything, and I think a lot of models were that. Believe it or not.
Yes.
Ask any model. They were the nerd. No one liked them. They were punished for being tall. All of us in school would be like this so that we could be as tall as you. And to all of you, jocks and cheerleaders, look where I am, and where are you?
I'm going to be meow. But Eileen Ford, when I came to the United States in 1975, she looked at me. She had Beverly Johnson was her model, and I was with Wilhelmina. You know, and everything at that time, it was like, you know, you have to have one black model at a time. You can't have two. You know, it's like anything. So she looked at me and she said, she's not going to last. 30 years.
Ladies, you can decline.
I actually have a good friend of ours who, right when SoulCycle was starting, sort of took me aside and was like, Elizabeth, don't you know, like, spinning is dead. It peaked in the 80s. So it's
there
good that
you
we could
go.
revive it.
I won't force anyone else to answer this question, but I do, before we close, I would love to hear from each one of you guys, just very briefly, what is the part of your job as an entrepreneur that you like the most, and what is the part that you like the least?
Okay.
Dylan?
Well, I love that I do what I love. I mean, candy's my passion, window shopping for ideas, going through Glamour magazine and other magazines and any media for inspiration, to making bracelets and candy-colored anything. I love that I can produce things I see and share it with my friends in the world and people from all different countries who love candy. So that's great and fun, and I love that I can control my schedule, being that I am a hard worker and I know when I'm most productive and when I'm not. I hate firing people. I hate managing people. I'm like stressed already about thinking about certain things I have to do in the next month to make sure that the ends meet, and so those are things I don't like it. I wish I could just, live in Candyland and enjoy it, but I got a business to run, and it's hard work. It's a lot of hard work. It sounds all fun and games, but it's work.
It certainly is. Elizabeth?
I love writing in the studios, and I also love the fact that our first employees were our babysitters. And now we sort of woke up one day, we're like, oh my God, like, this is a whole company of women. It's pretty unbelievable.
How many employees do you have?
We have almost 600.
Incredible.
So it's just really, and it's really exciting because we're always inspiring each other, and it's very much of a collaborative culture. And I think that's the great privilege of having a successful business, is being able to build a culture that, Julie and I always talk about how we want to create a company that we want our daughters to work at. And it's great to be able to be in that position.
Yeah.
So grateful.
Iman?
Oh,
Best part of the job, worst part of the job?
yeah. Best part is the ability to have stayed on the course and gave a lot of message to a lot of young black women and women with skin of color, regardless of their ethnic background, that they are beautiful regardless what the general public says, and that they should be feeling beautiful in their own skin. And the most important that it is if beauty is in the eye of the beholder, let the beholder be you. So appreciate yourself and say, yes, I am beautiful. So that's the best part of my job. The worst part of my job is when I'm asked continuously by women for makeup tricks. How to make an African American nose thinner, how to make an Asian eyes look bigger. And I'm saying, what have I been saying? You are beautiful. You don't need those tricks. If you believe it, you are. That's it.
Kiara, toughest part.
Toughest part, best. I'll go with best part.
Yes, first.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for me, being able to create so much content and do so much work, and have this site that is sort of this 24/7 inspiration to live, a more creative life is really exciting. And working with, for me also working with my team and, like Elizabeth said, like creating this culture. Today was our last day in our office, and we did our company meeting. We had this female mariachi group there, and we had Bloody Marias, and and our sombrero hats, and it was just great to kind of I had gone back and looked at our hashtag for our office and on Instagram and presented some of the pictures, and it was just for me, it was just this really emotional moment of we've created this place that's a really fun place to work, and where, I feel, compelled to inspire the people around me, but also feel so inspired by the people that work with me every day. So I think for me, that collaborative environment and also our relationship with our readers is what kind of drives me. I don't know, the worst part, I actually really hate interviewing. There's something about interviewing that makes me feel like I'm being interviewed, and it stresses me out.
I think everyone feels like that. Coco?
The best part, I would say, just being in a creative field to work with some amazing people. I mean, the chance now that, yes, you can use your phone, you can call up people. I get to work with some amazing people and just ask, hey, can we do this? And funny enough, the answer is usually yes, and it's amazing. The things my husband and I, especially James, sometimes he'll think of an idea and I'm like, that sounds insane, and yet it happens, and I love the fact that I don't have to just model, I can play around. But on the other hand, I'm not taken seriously because you're a model. You just take photos, just stay pretty, but don't talk. So for me, that is still a frustrating thing. Even today, a tweet was, you mentioned I get to be an editor at Contributor editor. I'm not an editor. There we go. At PC, but for people to look at me and go, you shouldn't know anything about technology. What are you talking about? It's sad to see that we have a stereotype of women must, or women that are in photos, just look pretty, but shut up. That still is something that is pretty difficult for me, because I want women to express themselves, especially I in the fashion world, so especially my models, my young girls. I want them all to talk about what they love, what they're doing, what they're hurting, and that sucks for me to hear people. So don't be negative, Nancy's, be positive.
Hear that? Okay, we have learned a lot here today. Let me try to quickly recap. From Coco, we learned be first. Iman told us, among other things, you need to know what you're talking about. You need to really know your material. And also, it's the product, stupid. Dylan, you reminded us to look at the big picture, figure out what your product is delivering to people beyond the obvious physical product. Elizabeth, I loved what you said about being grateful for your customers and how far that can take you, and how that really led you guys down the road to what you became, that gratitude for the people who were walking through the door. Piera, I loved what you just said about creating the culture that you want to work in. That's an amazing thing that happens when women start their own companies, is that you can create the place that you want to work, and then other people get to work there, and you've created this wonderful thing for them. Read your contracts, carry them in your bag if necessary. Coco will be very proud of you. And as Iman told us, don't be afraid to ask to be mentored by other women. You heard so many of the panelists here today talk about how important that is. We're all here to help each other. So I just want to thank the panelists here tonight, and thanks to all of you for your great questions.